Now that you know what patterns and mirrors are in CAD, let's go ahead and learn how to use these tools in OnShape. Let's start with the pattern tool. You can use this tool in your sketch, or you can use it on like a part. We will start by using it in a sketch. Create a new document called Patterns and Mirrors, and then make a sketch on the top plane and just draw a square or a rectangle, it doesn't matter. Once you have your square or your rectangle, we can go ahead and use the pattern tool. The pattern tool is located up at the top. It'll either be a circle pattern or it'll be this 2x2 grid. If you hover over it, it'll also tell you what the tool is. It defaults to the linear pattern. So if you want to choose a different one, you click on the down arrow and you can select which tool you want. Let's go ahead and start with the linear pattern. Click on that tool to enter it, and then all we want to do is we want to select our square. So drag and hold and just make sure you select the entire square. Now you can see we can adjust our pattern here. It automatically defaults to 3 by 1. If you grab the arrows, you can change the distance the squares are from each other, up or down, left or right. You could also change how many squares there are. If you go where it says 2x or number x, so 3x, 1x, whatever, you can double click on that and change the amount of squares there are. Once you do that, if you click on your left button, you are done with your pattern. But let's say you want to edit your pattern. You still can do that. You can change the amount of squares just by going to that number X again and changing that number. Or you even can change the distance. All you want to do is you want to find the dimension that represents the distance. So for me, it's the 1.43 and the 1.41. If you change the distance, you want to be aware of where you're measuring from. So for instance, left to right direction, it's always the left side of one square to the left side of the other square. For up and down, it's going to be bottom to bottom. So the bottom of one square to the bottom of another. That's the distance you're measuring. So we can change that to be whatever distance we want. If you change it to the same dimension as your square, you can see that it makes a perfect grid. So all the squares are touching each other on the sides. If you go less than that, your squares will overlap. More than the dimension of your square, and you'll have space. So play around and see how to change your pattern and get used to it. To use the circular pattern is very similar to the linear one, except this time I'm going to use a circle as my example shape. This is just easier to see, so that's why I'm using a circle. You can continue to use your square. Just Control Z, or if you really want to, just start a new sketch on the top plane again, and just hide sketch 1 by clicking the eyeball to make it go away. So once you have the object that you're trying to circular pattern, you click on the down arrow again on your pattern tool, and you want to choose circular pattern. Once you click on that, you're in the tool, select what you're trying to pattern, whether that be a circle or a square or whatever shape you want it to be, and you see that you have this circle come up. That's exactly what this tool does. It makes whatever you want to pattern into a circle, or patterned around a circle. You do need a center point represented by this square, and if you click, you can drag the center point to wherever you want. You can choose any place you want, or you can choose a specific location based on your sketch. For me, I'll just be using the origin. Again, you can change how many circles or squares or whatever you are trying to pattern. So if you change this number, you can see that more circles or squares, if you're using them, appear. If you grab the arrow, you can change at how many degrees around the circle you're trying to pattern. So let's say I want to do half or 180 degrees around this circle. I can do that. You can also change it to, let's say, like 15 degrees or whatever. The closer you get to your original circle, the closer the circles are together. You can do a full 360, which pretty much makes them evenly spaced, or again, you can kind of just drag and see where you like it. Once you click on the left button on your mouse, you're done with your circular pattern. You can still change the degrees if you need to by double clicking on the angle, or you can change the amount that is being patterned. So 6 makes it less. Let's say I change the dimension of my original square or circle. Let's say instead of 1 inch, I want to do 2. Everything else also changes accordingly. So these new circles that I've been patterning are also 2. Now that you know how to use the pattern tool in a sketch, let's learn how to do that on an object or outside of a sketch. So with our square, let's just go ahead and make it a cube or rectangular prism or whatever you want. The pattern tools are very similar in the sense that you want to look for the four cubes or the 4 like cylinders around a circle or in like a 2x2 grid. Again, let's start with the linear pattern. Click on it to enter the tool and you see that the selection box comes up. The first blue box is entities to pattern. We want to choose our cube or object that we want, and then we need to choose a direction. This direction tells us which way we want to have our pattern start. To select the direction, you want to make sure the direction box is highlighted blue so that's selected, and then you can choose either a edge or a face of your cube or whatever. So let's just choose the left side or right side. If you choose the right side, your pattern starts to go on the right. If you choose the left side, it does the same thing but just on the left. If you change the distance, this is just like changing how much space there is between your squares or cubes, and then instance count is how many cubes you want to pattern. If you click on the check mark centered, you just do 5 cubes on each side. It just centers your pattern around your original cube. If you click on second direction, you're able to choose another face or edge to continue your pattern so we can get that grid. So if you click on the top face or bottom face, change the instance count, let's say 3, we can see that now we see our grid. Click the green check mark and we're done. To do the circular pattern outside the sketch mode, we need to have in our sketch an axis of rotation that we're going to revolve our object around, our 3D object. So right by my square, I also just drew a straight line. It doesn't matter what distance is, it just needs, you need to have something to revolve around. Make this a cube, and we want to show sketch 1. So I'm going to just click on the eyeball next to sketch 1, and we can see that we have our vertical line or our axis of rotation. The axis of rotation can also be an edge if you want to, but I think it's easier to see what the pattern looks like if you have a vertical line. To enter the circular pattern tool, click on the drop-down arrow of the linear pattern tool and click circular pattern. Again, select the entity you want to pattern, our cube, axis of pattern, that's what you want that straight line for. So select that box so it's highlighted blue and then click on that line. And now you can see that the cubes are patterned around that line or axis. Again, you can choose the angle, so 180 or 90, whatever you want. And you can choose how many. So 15, 5, whatever. If you check on equal spacing, the spaces between the cubes will be the same. If you uncheck it, it might not be. It kind of just puts it all in the same cube. Click the check mark to be done, and there you go. Now let's use the mirror tool. The mirror tool is much simpler than any of the pattern tools, and so that anytime you choose an axis or a plane or a surface, it'll just mirror whatever you want around that axis, surface, plane, whatever. So to do it in a sketch, let's go ahead and have our cube again, or sorry, square again. Let's move on to the mirror tool. The mirror tool is very simple in that you mirror whatever you want around an axis, a plane, or a surface, or whatever you choose. To do this in a sketch, let's go ahead and start with our square, and we need an axis or something to mirror this square around. So let's go ahead and just draw a straight line, a vertical line, right near our square. It can be any distance, it does not matter. And does not matter how long it is or how tall it is, whatever. We want to choose our mirror tool, which looks like an L with a like dotted line in the middle and then like a backwards L next to it. If you hover over it, it'll say mirror. Click on it to enter the tool, and it'll ask you to select a mirror line. You want to select that straight line we drew, which is our axis or a mirror line, and then highlight or select the entire square. And now you can see that our square has been mirrored to the other side. Click on Escape to exit the tool, and if you drag the mirror line closer to our original square, you can see that the mirrored square also gets closer. The distance between the original square and the mirror line is the same on either side. It does not matter. Again, it's just mirrored. You could also see this with an irregularly shaped letter like an L. So if I make an L really fast, and again, I'm just going to use a new line for this. If I pattern this L around this center line or mirror line, you can see that it kind of flips it. It just takes it and mirrors it or flips it around whatever line you want. If I drag it closer, the L's get closer, further apart, same thing. Again, they're the same distance away from each other. So you can see they're both 1.126 inches away from this mirror line. To use this mirror tool on a part that's already existing, not a sketch, you need to have some sort of plane or a surface to mirror around. For example, if we click on the mirror tool and we want to mirror this L, you need a mirror plane. So you have to click on mirror plane so it turns blue, and then you have to choose some sort of surface if you don't have a plane already. So if we chose the side of our L, you can see that it'll mirror this L around that plane or surface. If I chose a different surface, it'll do the same. Depending on which surface or plane you choose, the result will be different. But you can see that my L's are like connected or touching. But what if I don't want that? Then I need a separate plane. You have to click on the plane tool, click on your entities of which you're trying to make that plane off of. So for us, I'm just going to choose the side, and now you have a plane that you can drag away or closer to this L shape. Click the check mark to be done. Click your mirror tool again, your entities to mirror the L and the mirror plane. And instead of the surface or side of our L, we're going to choose the plane we just created. And now you can see that it's like the sketch. We have space between our two L's, and the space between the L and the plane on either side is the same. Click the check mark button and you're done.